What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what analysts have been doing, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So NIO did close 0.2% in the green, so nothing too crazy. 488 the low, 493 the high. So this has been kind of the most tame NIO has been in a very long time. Today we did have 13.1 million shares being traded, but although the market closed early, and that's because of Christmas tomorrow, so the market's closed as well tomorrow. Merry Christmas to all that celebrate, take time, spend time with family and so forth. But there was a couple of things that did really push NIO higher. So I'll give you a quick summary of that because honestly, there's not really much to kind of talk on aside from the analyst part, but today, there was a couple of things moving it. So we had initial jobless claims coming in at 214 versus 226. Market didn't initially like that, but then we did also have a lot of firms. So most recently, we did have JPM, UBS, and a couple others really signaling that we're going to have a year-end rally and going into 2026. Elon as well kind of doubled down on that mentality, how he said in 2026, we're going to see solid double-digit growth. And I think he was referring to GDP, and that would be insane if that actually does come to fruition. So in general, that's kind of one thing that really hyped up the broader market. Plus, we had some news associated to Nike and so forth. So that I think overall was a pretty good thing. Today, there wasn't really that much associated to NIO. So no news, no SEC filings, no speculative topics, no institutions really traded NIO at all today. These are all the transactions occurring on the dark pool. Dark pool is obviously, as I mentioned, linked to kind of hedge funds and shorts. Hedge funds were a little bit more active. That's because we are nearing the end of Q4. So hedge funds are going to be rebalancing. So we had 150, 125,000, 90,000 transactions. So all of that, in my opinion, were hedge funds, but everything else was associated to shorts. Today, shorts didn't really do that much. They kind of broke their trend because over the last about 3 or 4 consecutive days, they've been returning, but they did increase 342,000 shares. 7.7% of the free float's being shorted, works out to be 156.83 million shares overall being shorted. So again, nothing really crazy. You see shares on loan really starting to go up a little bit. So that's sitting at 73.53, but still you see some signs of naked shorting. And you can tell that because shares on loan is lower than the number of shares being shorted. So you should never have a scenario like that. So definitely some sketchiness, but it's been like that since, for the most part, September the 24th. So SEC is turning a blind eye to this. And obviously, I think SEC, Wall Street, nobody really cares about just ADRs in general. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. Looking at the options, again, factoring in that we had a shorter day, 332,000 in calls, 573,000 in puts, and then 50% of all the options being done were bearish in nature, but not really much to kind of analyze based on all that. From a bull standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be above 5. So hopefully this week we can actually see it close above 5, not a couple cents below that. Because as I've mentioned, typically shorts and market makers like to kind of manipulate NIO just so it closes right below $5. So we'll have to wait and see. But still today we are gravitating around, or at least based on this, around the $5 range. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 5. Oddly enough, you have here, so January 15th, 2027, this might be just a hedge potentially, but you do have 2 and 250 that was being done. So looks like some maybe institutions, because based on that volume, I don't think that's retail, is assuming that NIO is going to be fully breaking down by 2027. So kind of interesting to see with it closing at 490, smack dab in the middle between this pivot and this S1. 488 was the low for today, so we know that this is a good support level. Same with this S3 that's been kind of tested numerous times, so that's also another good support level. Aside from that, 506 and then 511 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. So not really much going on for that as far as, I guess, upside. When it comes to analyst ratings, so for those of you that again tune into a lot of my videos, I bring up this on occasion. And so this is just analyst ratings. The last couple were Bernstein, Macquarie, you had Barclays, BAC, so forth, and nothing really crazy new. But there was some stuff that actually has been happening because some analysts can actually change their estimates without changing their official rating. A lot of people don't really understand that. But from earnings per share. So there's a couple of key metrics, right? Earnings per share, revenue, those are kind of what Wall Street judges earnings by. So you can kind of see it went from -74 to -6 cents, and that was done between 4 weeks and recently. So analysts become a little bit more optimistic, I guess, on NIO's earnings per share. Revenue, though, they became a little bit more bearish. So it went from 35.04 billion to 33.17 billion. So a little bit lower. And so you can see a analyst, so it went from 7 analysts to 6. So most likely it did cause, like, whoever removed their estimate was a super bull, if that kind of makes sense, because logically that's how you can kind of calculate how it went down that significantly. So at the end of the day, kind of analysts are mixed. So they're assuming less revenue and a little bit more efficiency coming from NIO. But at the end of the day, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I think NIO largely has been getting passes. So even though these are key metrics, Wall Street kind of turns a blind eye, luckily enough, to a lot of this. And as long as they can give good future guidance and hit their targets, then that's going to be, I guess, seen as a good earnings. So we'll have to kind of wait and see. Their earnings hasn't been announced just yet. So just hold tight for that. Aside from all of that, though, on the actual chart itself, not really much positive to really bring up. Stochastic RSI is at 83, so arguably considered overbought, and it kind of bounced off of that 10-day moving average. So honestly, like I said, there's not really much positives to really bring up for this. Algorithmic trading from the flow was very active as per usual. No real kind of articles, no analyst ratings, nothing along those lines. So yeah, we just have to now sit tight, wait for Friday, hopefully to see if NIO can actually test and break above that $5 range and hopefully close above it. And then if so, then it will be above that 10-day moving average, signaling that's going to be building up a little bit of momentum. So let me know your thoughts on NIO. Are you taking advantage of kind of how things have been stagnant and doing some covered calls, for instance, or selling some puts just to get some additional premiums in? Or have you been kind of selling? What's your kind of general viewpoint on NIO? At the same time, it is rather frustrating because NIO over the last little bit has actually pulled back quite a lot, when today the S&P did hit a new record high. So it really is frustrating to kind of hold EVs right now, because even aside from that, we have American EVs like Lucid and Rivian doing absolutely horrible. At least Rivian's doing a little bit better, I guess, than Lucid. But let me know your thoughts on NIO. Merry Christmas to all of that. Celebrate. One final thing, pop over to my stacked account if you're looking for some solid day trades. I actually lowered it as a promotion just for up until the end of the year. So you can get in for $1.50. It will never increase whatsoever. So lock yourself in for that. Put out some solid day trades as well as swing trades as well. So pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.